Let's talk about H.R. 5863. This is the most recent effort, but before we even really get to that, tell me, when did you start fighting for federal tax relief for campfire survivors?
Well, it was not long after the award was decided down in Sacramento on that, with the determination that people deserve this from PG&E's, issue with not having the power lines how they should have been.
Yeah.
So not long after, we learned that the IRS was going to tax that. And when that became real, say, well, that's not right, because people are going to pay taxes on this award just to try and get their lives back somewhat to what they were before.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they were going to have to pay the taxes on the attorney's fees portion of it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's an outrage.
Right.
So we put legislation in. That was a different session of Congress and didn't get over the goal line for whatever reason. And so now we're back at it again. And as you know, we had a standalone bill for it. And
that was the first one.
Right.
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 And that came out basically right after the settlement. Mm-hmm. So there was the standalone. What happened with that one? Remind me.
Ran out of time in the last Congress for whatever reason. So the other issue is that in this Congress, there were several taxes that were going to expire at a macro level. Mm-hmm. That the Ways and Means Committee wanted us to include our tax bill along with a whole bunch of other tax issues they were going to work it on because they didn't want to do it in dribs and drabs. Okay, fine. So we put it in the big bill. We had passed that bill in the House. It went over to the Senate, and it died because it didn't have enough of this or too much of that in it for the senators. So that got stopped. So then we weren't going to sit there and take that. So me and my two other colleagues from Florida and Ohio put together the package, and we got what was called a discharge petition on the House floor that pulled those pieces back to us to a direct vote on the House floor. Now, a discharge petition is usually seen as hostile to the majority leader, to the Senate, to the Speaker, I mean. But in this case, they were for it because they could see what was going on.
Right.
So we passed that by an overwhelming majority in the House, like 382 to 7, I think was the number. And so people loved it. We sent it over to the Senate. Our two California senators, they're on board. Wyden from up in Oregon, he's one of the leaders on the committee that came on board to be for it. So right here at the end this week, there was 3 Republicans that had a hold on it for a while. Mm-hmm. They took the hold off of it. And so it looked like green lights. All the Democrats, all the Republicans had more or less signed off on it.
Okay.
And so on Wednesday, when the other legislation on the continuing resolution was being done, we were being told this was going to work. It was going to go through. And Haley, at the very last minute, just minutes to go, I'm told, in the Senate session, somebody put an anonymous hold on the bill.
Okay, it was anonymous.
Only takes one senator to put a hold. This one was anonymous, which I thought, how chicken is that? But
because I'm hearing people in the community are saying that it was Senator Scott Wyden, I believe.
No, Wyden's the guy from Oregon that was helping us. We believe, and we can't substantiate it, but we believe it was actually Chuck Schumer.
Okay, but that's, as you said.
And I'll tell you why.
Speculation. Okay.
There's political reasons, which is a little more speculation, but Senator Rick Scott, Republican in Florida, is having a fairly tough race going this time. He should be okay, we think, but whatever. So this would be considered a win for him because part of the elements of this bill is for fire victims as well as hurricane and then the Ohio train wreck situation there. And so the package has all that in it. My understanding is they didn't want to give Senator Rick Scott a win this close to the election when he had a fairly tough race. And the day after, Schumer announced he was going to put millions in of Senate reelect money against Rick Scott. So if you want to tie the pieces together, and I can't say for certain, but it looked like dirty, ugly politics on this thing. And I was talking with my wife this morning. She was actually getting pretty upset hearing this because we see folks like this. We see them in the community, at the store, meetings. Mm-hmm. And I have to look at them and say, yeah, we're not getting it done. And it breaks your heart because here we are, So now I'll say, Haley, it's not over with yet. Right. The bill is still viable all the way up till January 3 at noon. Okay. Okay. I mean, practically a little sooner than that.
And that would be the bill exactly as is now, and that's through the Senate. But
so what I hope is that after this silly election is over with, that the senators will take up the bill because you won't have an implication on Rick Scott in Florida or whatever Schumer might be looking at, and that they'll just take up the bill. It should pass because everybody's for it. And as Steve Crowder, you said on your news clip yesterday, they go back and talk to everybody, and they're all for it. And then they get on the plane and come home and find out this happens to them at the last minute. So it's pretty sickening. But the best hope is that we're going to do it in November or December while we're still in this, what we call the lame duck session.
I mean, do you anticipate, though, being so busy with the spending bill and everything else that's going on this fall, where maybe it's everybody's for it, but we just don't get to it?
I'm going to be an optimist again,
Okay.
okay? So,
Yeah.
because there's between about November 12th or 13th all the way up to January 2. And so, more practically, maybe up until just before Christmas. So
Okay.
that gives you a solid month.
Right.
And we are supposed to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and work on more than one thing. And so the spending package will probably go, to extend the CR. It'll probably be pushed a little farther in December. So we should be able to get some things done before then, including the farm bill, for crying out loud, but this tax bill. This is a small thing
Right.
for the size of the government we have, but a giant thing for our people here that have been, God bless you, very patient
So,
on waiting for us to get this done.
so I know at this point, this is out of the House, so out of your hands, essentially.
Other than lobbying on them, pushing on them a little bit, yes.
Okay, so you can do a little bit of lobby, I mean, even though it's in the Senate, maybe you can be involved to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Let's say worst case scenario, we get into next year and it didn't pass. What comes next? Are you going to keep on fighting for this thing?
It'll be the first bill they put us across the desk as soon as we're sworn in on January 3.
Okay.
Providing I win re-election, I can't assume that, but
Seeing what has happened, I mean, you tried as a standalone, we tried it in this monster package and then in this smaller one, specifically for disaster relief. If you were to have to recraft something a fourth time, is there anything you might do differently?
I don't know that we need to change a whole lot,
Okay.
really, because as I mentioned, all the senators said they were for it, other than what appears to be, and allegedly, Schumer doing a last minute because he wanted to have a political thing in Florida against Senator Rick Scott, allegedly. So you can't beat that part. The politics tends to really ugly a lot of things up in this business, but people are for this. Our two senators in California, they're good. And the House, there's questions in the beginning on finance and that, but it's righteous. It's good. And so we'll put it over the desk on the first day, along with Congressman Stubbe and there's a new guy in the Ohio district, Ruley. And so we'll put it over on the first day and go again. But I don't want to talk that way. I want to talk about what we can do in the month we're going to have after the election.
Yeah, okay, and hopefully we'll get it done. Is there anything people at home can do?
There's conversations how some people have filed for extensions on doing their taxes, and if you have that option, I would exercise it. Some people, my understanding, maybe you only get one time to do that, but I'd ask the question anyway. And I would ask for the extension at least into like January 15th.
Okay.
If you haven't used it already, if they'll grant it to you, it's IRS's call on that. They have certain rules and guidelines, but I would do the extension if you still have that in your playbook, because I really, really think we're going to get this bill done. But it was just shameful that it didn't get done this week. I was really optimistic, and boom, it just blew up due to a last-minute bit of pettiness, I'd call it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.